Hi and welcome to today's video. I'm so excited about today's topic because it's something that I truly enjoy, and it's the question, what makes you happy? I've tethered it together with the question, what you want to learn on your path, on your journey to your purpose. It was one of the questions in the questionnaire, and I'm not going to read into, even though I'm looking down here, because this is something that was a little bit different for each person depending on where they were standing. But today this part is very crucial. I believe it's very, very crucial to getting closer to your purpose, getting closer to your life's purpose, to making your life more purposeful. In the videos before, we've already dived deep into what our fears are, right? So we went already through the parts that scare us, that make us numb, and sort of take a, I feel that fears sometimes make us, sort of like stiffen up and not being able to move, right? So today I want to put the focus on the things that make you happy. And this is because of something that I realized on my path that I was doing intuitively correct once I started. I'm not sure if I told you that my first sort of like downer depression time that I had was when I reached my 10 years in Germany. And I was living there after 10 years, realizing, oh my God, I haven't done anything of what I had, set out to do when I moved to Germany. And I had this first downer, and I was thinking like, okay, again, I'm in a job that I don't like. I need to do something. I want to know what I'm supposed to be doing with this life, because it just feels like it's not worth what I'm doing, right? So somehow intuitively, back then, I started with something that I'm going to suggest to you now. And I'm calling it my happy moments list. You can either make it a real list. I back then didn't write it down because it felt like I was creating moments for myself in my head. But the thing is, I also remembered. So the thing is about creating something, a list for yourself that you can always go back to, especially in the moments that you don't feel good. Go back to these. And this happy moments list is basically you start being mindful throughout the day, throughout whatever you do. And whenever you have a moment where you're like, oh my God, right now I'm so happy, write it down. This is going to give you sort of like, it's going to help you your compass to sort of like give you a direction of where your purpose can be. This is also because when I started all this, I had already read a couple of books on personal development, spirituality, and things like that. And most of those books always speak about our purpose is filled with lightness. It's something we love and we enjoy, right? So why not start making a list of the things you enjoy? And I'm talking about things like it could have been like a nice conversation with people, with friends, with family. It could be, I remember at one point I was walking through the city center with some friends. We had done some shopping. And then I had this moment where there's an arch in the center of Munich, and under a tree, someone was playing an instrument. It was a really old instrument. I don't know the name of it in any language I know, but I remember it was an older instrument. This guy was sitting under a tree playing that music, and there was an amazing sunset, and I could see half of the sunset coming on over that arch, and then the picture, it's like ingrained into my head. This picture of this beautiful afternoon sunset lighting in the city, some people walking, and then this music that this guy was playing. And I loved it so much because it had everything. It was like I was spending time with friends that I liked a lot and respected a lot, hanging out with them, and then having this beautiful natural phenomenon happening that happens every day. And you could just take it for granted, but in that moment it was so magical. And this guy was sitting there making that music, and it just made the whole thing even more perfect, right? So I put that in my list. And For now, for example, and I'm not saying that every one of you guys that likes to have good conversations is going to be a coach, but in my case, one of the most happiest moments that I would have were when I was having conversations with friends. And I'm talking about really deep conversations where we were going into personal development topics, you know, and looking at how we were, what we could change, what we could improve. And those were the conversations that mostly made me feel really joy and happy. And ta-da, today I have become a life coach, and one of my favorite things to do is sitting down there coaching my clients and enjoying that conversation that I'm having with them, because I see it as a conversation. Even though, of course, I'm coaching, I'm working, but it doesn't feel like work because it's something where I forget the time. And remember, I think I already said it in one of the first videos, the joyful things are the things where we forget time. So this is also, add that to your list. Whatever makes you forget time, whatever makes you feel joy. I remember I had a time in my life where actually the joyful things were when I was knitting and when I was crocheting. So I was enjoying crocheting for a long time. Later it became working on my website. That was so amazing because, you know, I think I told you I'm a little nerd. So that was something too. So to follow these things, like the passions, the things you love to do, where you really enjoy yourself. So it's the interesting thing about this list is that it has two things that it's going to do with you. On one hand, you're going to start having a list that you can actually use for whenever you're feeling down. Bring that list out and look at the things that make you happy and start doing them. I'm going to tell you something about that in a bit, but on the other hand, it's going to teach you that in the moment that you're feeling the joy, that you're going to go like, oh my God, this moment, I need to write it down. In that moment, automatically you're going to feel grateful because you're having that beautiful moment, and it fills you with gratefulness because you're able to feel it right now. To just be right now in this moment that's so amazing, that's filling your heart, that's making you feel so amazing. That's why it's so important to follow joy, to follow what makes you happy, what you really truly like and love, right? And this is why this is so essential. And like I said earlier with the compass, for me, whenever I don't know, or whenever I used to not know, because now it's gotten a little bit more intuitive and more, how do you say, for me it's a little bit easier, but a lot of the times when we are afraid of something, or when we are joyful of something, those are the two needles, compass needles that we have, that are going to give us the direction towards our purpose. Because a lot of the times the things we're afraid of are the ones that once we overcome them, they become easy, and we love them so much that we want to do them over and over again. And remember, I think I gave you, no, I know I gave you the example of my fear of the ocean. Now it has changed over from being something I feared to become something that I love so much that I don't want to live without it anymore. And this works in all the ways with everything. I used to be afraid of being authentic because I didn't even know who I was, what I wanted to be. And once I started to do that, it became something that I love doing, becoming more and more myself, expressing myself the way I am, not changing myself anymore. Because now I know who I am. So I have the strength, the power to do that. And I'm just giving you this example because you can do this too. It doesn't always, like I said, it doesn't always have to be something huge and fearful that has to do with our lives, like the fear of heights. I'm talking about little fears of things going into. And I want to now finally tell you the one story that I've been talking about. Because to me, when I was realizing, like, when were the moments that I love, that I feel joy, that I really enjoy people and everything. And I've mentioned it a couple of times. The Oktoberfest. For starters, being a very spiritual person, it feels weird to actually love Oktoberfest, right? So that was something that I had to deal with myself, to find, this is like, okay, wait, I'm a spiritual person, but I still love going to Oktoberfest. And So I asked myself, why do I like Oktoberfest? For me, it's like I don't go there to get drunk and like to have that alcohol and thing around it, because I'm a person that I just don't drink too much alcohol. But what I do enjoy during that time is because for me, in that time, Munich becomes even more international. It becomes a little bit more, I think loose is the wrong word, but it's less tense. It's less everything fast, fast, fast. It's more like, hey, you're there to enjoy a great time. And everybody that goes there is there to enjoy a great time. And I remember talking to my shamanic teacher back then about how you can either go to Oktoberfest and concentrate on the drunk people, on the fighting, on the puking and all the awful things, or you can go there and sort of like surf the wave of the positive energy of everybody just wanting to have a good time on Oktoberfest. And I told him about that, and so he came with me to Oktoberfest. And we went there, and I remember him telling me afterwards, he was like, "You're so right. It's like surfing a wave of positive emotions, and if you do that, it's like a refocusing that we already had." So at one point, I decided, okay, for me, it's a beautiful time. That's why I promised my friends I'll be back whenever it's possible for me, always for Oktoberfest, to be back in Munich, because I like enjoying that time, that special time with my friends. It's a time of celebration. So it's sort of like celebrating life, celebrating the Bavarian culture, of celebrating those things, right? But then I remember having a moment. I'm trying to remember what year it was, but I don't really recall what year it was. But it was after I had realized, had going through my own process and everything. And I realized one time that the whole Oktoberfest season, because it's 16 days, felt like I don't know. I felt like I didn't want to go. It felt like something was wrong. It's like, something wasn't feeling right. I wasn't enjoying myself too much with Oktoberfest. So I was thinking maybe I'm growing out of it. But I really went inwards, because I was like, I want to see, because I mean, this is something I used to enjoy a lot. So why am I not enjoying it anymore? And it became very clear to me once I started to look inwards that I had a program inside of my head with all my friends, because, Oktoberfest is very traditional. So there's a lot of traditions around it. So we want to keep those traditions. And one of the traditions of not all, but some of the friends that I was going to Oktoberfest with was to always wear the traditional clothing, wearing a dirndl, if you know the name. It's a special kind of dress. And I liked wearing those dresses, and I liked wearing those dresses back then. But at one point, I wasn't feeling comfortable with them. I felt like, because they're a little tight around the waist. And back then, I didn't have a lederhosen yet. And I remember sometimes friends going like, "Oh, you're not wearing the right shoes. You're not using the right bag." So it was sort of like this pressure around the dress code for Oktoberfest. And I realized that having that dress code was what was making me feel bad, what was making myself not enjoy Oktoberfest anymore. So I worked on that pattern, I worked on that programming, and changed that. Nowadays, I still wear dirndl every now, the typical traditional dress every now and then. But I don't care who tells me what shoes to wear, what bags to wear. I also wear lederhosen, and I just wear whatever I feel like. And if I don't feel like wearing the traditional clothing, I just don't. I just go and enjoy myself, because it's about the joy and it's about the celebration, right? And changing that in my own programming helped me do that. But that was because I was following the joy. Where do I have the joy? Where do I find the joy? And it's so amazing how you can have something like a tradition with your friends, with your family, that that after a moment loses its magic, you know, because because of that, it lost its magic. So, and then it feels like an obligation. It feels so hard and heavy. And I'm giving you this example because that's how it is with so many things. We have so many traditions that we think we need, and we create obligations out of them, so it doesn't feel joyful anymore. And remember, because in the last video we were talking about obligations as well, because we feel like it's something outside of our control, but it's not. That's why I wanted to tell you this story, because in that moment, for me, that was something joyful, where I can be in the moment and enjoy the celebration and just, you know, just be with nothing. There's no thoughts of tomorrow, of yesterday. It's just being there and celebrating with people. But it was ripped out because of the traditions, because of the dogmatisms put on there, because of the obligations that I thought I had. And this is something that happens with our friends, with our family, with so many things. It happens also, you know, like you can put that on Christmas. How many times do we feel obligated for Christmas, even though we're not following the joy? And what I'm trying to tell you with this also is that I'm not telling you to change the traditions or to change the obligations that you have with your friends, but just ask yourself, is it still joyful for you? So it's not about just creating that list of joy that is going to take you to closer to your purpose, but it's also about looking into the things that you do on a daily basis and ask yourself, how can you bring joy into that? And if you're not having joy, what can you change? Sometimes it does mean to just stop doing something. Sometimes it actually means to stop creating some, you know, like to that you have to say, you know what, I'm really sorry, but I'm just not into that or this anymore. But a lot of the times, especially when you ask yourself, you know, like, why was I doing this? And for me, like I said, my why for Oktoberfest is it's a beautiful time, spending time with friends. And I have friends that I only see during Oktoberfest time. So it's something special. And if I would still have that programming inside of me that it has to be this and this and this way, I wouldn't feel joy anymore. And I would take out the joy of actually spending time with my friends. And like I said, this is something that goes through everything. There's so many traditions we put in ourselves, we put in our lives, where we think we have to do it and we just don't do it. And by changing that programming, by really looking into how can I bring joy into this? I also gave you the example of my job back then, and it was the same thing. It was about how do I bring joy back into the work that I'm doing there. And like I said, in some cases, it might actually have to, you know, it actually means to distance yourself from someone or something. But sometimes it's just about changing your own programming that you have behind it, because it might just be something little that is hidden behind the fear of rejection. Because of course, I was afraid that if I would not be wearing the proper things, that I would have other people saying something about it. And to tell you the truth, it still happens. Funnily, not to me, but it still happens sometimes. I'll find some of my friends going like, oh my God, look at those shoes. You can't wear those shoes. Not to me usually, because I've actually spoken openly about this with my friends as well. But it's still a programming that exists in some people, and you're going to have it everywhere, right? And it's not my place to change my friends or to change their programming. But I changed it inside of me so well that it doesn't trigger me anymore. I hear them talk about it and I just go like, oh, whatever. Because I know everybody just, you know, whatever happens, everybody's, you know, feel free to do whatever brings joy into your life. And that's why, for me, this is one of the important videos. It's so important to bring joy into your life. And it's something that we can do ourselves, where if we can just look and, like I said, look into ourselves. We talked about it in the last video about owning those things. And this is how you can own it. The people around you don't own those things, don't own your feelings, don't own your thoughts. They're yours. And if you really give them space and transform those and change them for yourself, and to tell you the truth, sometimes reprogramming yourself is just about making the decision, like we said in one of the previous videos. It's just about making the decision to say, okay, you know what? I'm going to make the decision to get out of this. I'm going to change this paradigm that I have inside of me. It's okay for me to be who I am. And you're going to have the strength and you're going to do it. So if you want to use this as an exercise, make a list of your happy moments. You're going to see the more and more you give your happy moments space, first of all, you're going to be, you're going to be able to see them more. You're going to see how many happy moments you actually have, and they're going to become more and more, because the more space you give them, the more they're going to attract, and you're going to have way more awesome, positive, happy moments in your life. One thing. And so this is about really being mindful with yourself. Be mindful with yourself. Look at yourself. But I mean, this is something that you've been hearing from me from all the videos. So really listen to yourself and ask yourself always, does this bring me joy? And if something doesn't bring you joy, ask yourself, what can you change to create joy in it? And if not, just by knowing that it doesn't bring you joy, you'll know that you can just let it go. It's going to give you the strength. And also, like I said, the decision, if you take the decision, it's going to be easier for you to let it go. Okay, I hope you liked this one, and I hope you have a joyful list. I'd like to hear of your joyful moments. If you'd like, just reply to the email where you received this link from. And yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing you soon. Bye, have a great time.